Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to speak for the Queen. The Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee Medal. And this evening I have the pleasure of presenting this to Marjean Fichtenburg. If you could come up, Marjean. Let me read a bit about you first here. Marjean was nominated for the Diamond Jubilee Medal by Joe Warnback of the Canadian Crime Victims Foundation in Toronto for her work done in establishing rights for victims of violent crime. The Canadian Crime Victims Foundation directly supports victims, provides educational interface with Canadian universities to implement courses that will better equip police, justice officials, and others in dealing with victims. Additionally, the Foundation gives out scholarship funds for siblings and children of murder victims. It is with great honor, by command of Her Majesty, the Queen, to present the Diamond Jubilee Medal to Marjean Fichtenburg in commemoration of the 60th anniversary of Her Majesty's ascension to the throne and recognition of her contributions to Canada. So Marjean, you have this great award and this really nifty medal. And I don't know why I shouldn't try to pin it on you, but maybe you could just hold it like that for pictures. Here, I've got this. You put it back in this little. Congratulations! That's a beautiful medal. Oh, you should certainly sit.
When Joe phoned me and told me he was going to nominate me, I was really surprised, and I don't really think this medal is all mine, because I had so much support and from so many wonderful people, including my family, my daughter, and my grandsons, and all the courageous people and brave people who shared their own stories with me and allowed me to take their stories to the government so that I could try to make a difference for victims of violent crime. Thank you.
Okay, I call this regular meeting to order. And could I have a motion to recess into the primary committee meeting? Councillor Wyers and Councillor Kendel. All those in favor? Okay. And we have the primary committee meeting agenda, adoption of the agenda. Motion to adopt, Councillor Wyers, Councillor ODoherty, all those in favor. The first presentation of delegation is the Manager of Technical Services, presentation by Remy Allard, Engineering of Piteau Associates. This has to do with community water wells, and welcome Mr. Piteau. Mr. Allard. You're not a partner in the firm yet.
Shall I sit here, or?
Yes, that would be good.
So there we go. So I have a PowerPoint presentation. It should take me about 10 minutes or a couple minutes more. So let me first thank you, Your Worship and Council, for putting aside some time this evening for me to make this presentation to you. I think it's a pretty positive presentation. Really what we're dealing with here is we have had a look at the current, let's say, status of your groundwater wells, and we're looking at how to prioritize some actions that you might entertain in the future to maintain the sustainability of that system. And we're also going to talk a little bit about groundwater protection planning, which is something that the Interior Health Authority has asked us to get started on in the town. So I don't know which way to point here. It's not going so well.
It's a new piece of equipment.
technology.
That didn't sound good.
Control, delete.
Yeah.
Must not
We
be
could
that.
probably just get somebody to tap on the keys if that's the simple thing to do. Okay, so basically, the first slide I'd like to talk about what the issues are in Grand Forks with respect to groundwater. And when I say issues, these are the things that are being looked at. They're not necessarily major issues, but you know, there are some people that think that we have a really big nitrate problem in Grand Forks, and in the area of your wells, in fact, we don't think that you have a problem, and I have a lot of information and data to support that. Now it keeps going back and forth. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, we'd like to also talk about the delivery capacity. Some of your wells are very closely spaced to each other, and it affects the ability for them to be pumped for long periods of time because they lower the water level in each of the wells. We'll also quickly talk about the aging of your wells. Some of them are pushing 50, 60 years old. And they're like any other asset that you have in the city. They need eventual replacement. We're not saying they need replacing now, but we're just trying to identify what the priorities are and which wells should be replaced and in what order. With regards to groundwater protection planning, of course, the Interior Health Authority is concerned about source water quality and the monitoring of that and the protection of that in your water supply. And the last one on the bottom is this business of bacteriological in your wells, like coliforms, etc. How vulnerable are your wells, and do they require treatment? We'll talk a little bit about that as well. So moving to the next slide. These are the two things that we're working on. The project that we are pretty much finished is what we call an asset valuation and supply planning exercise. That ties it very nicely with your capital asset management plan that you're currently working on, except we're looking at the wells in particular. And the second issue that we're working on is groundwater source protection planning, and this is something that the Interior Health Authority has required as a condition of your operational permit. And we had some discussions today, and we'll have some more discussions tomorrow, and we're trying to get that project kicked off as well. There we go. Okay, so it probably makes sense for us to have a quick peek at where your wells are. So I'm going to do them in chronological order. This is well number 1 that's no longer used. It hasn't been used since the mid-1980s. Well number 2 is one of your older wells over here. You forgive me if I can't remember the name of all the streets, but well number 2 is here. The main drag through town is the highway. We have well 3 and well 3A, which are at the west end of the airport. And then we have well 4 and well 5 over here. Now, in 1999, the firm that I work for drilled a test well looking for another location to develop groundwater supply for the city up here in the north. They also drilled one way down in behind this figure over here, down in this area, but it wasn't all that successful. This table here basically gives you a summary of a couple of the key characteristics of the wells. And I apologize, it doesn't appear to be large enough. I certainly can't read it from here, but I think you'll see the oldest well was drilled in 1956, and that should be well number 2? Or does it say 61?
Number one.
Okay, well number 1. Well, it's not used anymore, so I included it in here for reference, but well number 2 is your oldest operating well.
65.
65, thank you. After that is well number 3A. And there's a funny thing that happened here between 3 and 3A, but 3A was drilled in 1969, 4 was drilled in 77, 5 was drilled in 88, and well number 3 was drilled in 2000. So from an age perspective, your most valuable asset is number 3 because it's the newest one and likely is going to last longer before it needs replacement. So what we did is went through an asset valuation exercise, which is we looked at the age of the age of the well. We looked at, and this is a little bit technical and I don't want to go into it in much detail, but available drawdown is how much water you've got above the pump in the well so that when you pump it, you lower the level. The more you have, the better. Some of them have less, some of them have more. Efficiency is a huge thing for your wells here because they tend to decline in efficiency with time, and you have to go on and rehabilitate them or maintain them. It's like changing the oil in your car so that you make your car engine last longer. If you don't change the oil, it's not going to last so long. The other issue we looked at was vulnerability to water quality impacts, specifically nitrates. Are your wells vulnerable to nitrates? We're going to see later that they're not. Compliance with regulations. Since your wells were drilled, there are new regulations which have been adopted by the provincial government that require a certain number of things to be done. Basically, the findings here are that a couple of your wells, I don't think you really should spend a lot of money on bringing them up to speed with those regulations. They're not really critical regulations, but they're a checkbox that Interior Health Authority would like to see checked off. And the bottom one here is this thing called GUDI. That's a very ugly acronym standing for groundwater under the direct influence of surface water. Your wells are not considered GUDI. We'll talk very briefly about it because it may influence our groundwater protection planning, but your wells are not GUDI, and that's a good thing. This is, just to show you, is a big, ugly-looking spreadsheet that shows the summary of all of the analysis that we did. Just wanted to show you, it basically boils down to one piece of paper. Engineers like to solve problems on one piece of paper. And there's a whole pile of numbers there that reflect the value of each of the wells or each of your assets in terms of age, how efficient they are, how vulnerable they are. There's a whole pile of different things that we looked at, and we ranked the wells as the highest value asset to the lowest value asset. We won't go through that table in much detail. Where we finished up with this is that, again, as I said, I think there's pretty limited utility in spending money on well number 2, well number 3A, and well number 4. Now, well number 2 predominantly because it's old, well number 3A and 4 because they're within 22 meters of another well. And so really what you should do is put aside money to drill a new well at some point in the future. You don't need to do it right now, but you need to do some planning. Again, the point of this exercise was to identify priorities and to get you thinking in the right directions of how you might plan for those options at a later date. Then we talked about this total delivery capacity. Now, that's because some of the wells are so close together they interfere with each other. They lower each other's water levels, and it affects their ability to provide water in the long run. When the long run, I'm saying if you have a very dry summer period for 2 or 3 months and you have to pump these wells 24 hours a day, you're going to have to slow down your production because the wells won't be able to maintain it. You can do it for short-term periods, like for example for fire flows or for short-term demands, but you won't be able to do it for long-term. Even as we speak, you've been operating the wells a little bit beyond their safe capacity. You can operate them on short-term the way you are, but not for long-term. Then I'd like to say we're currently in discussions with Urban Systems, who is doing a study for you for trying to determine if you should put generator sets on well 4 and 5, so that you have the contingency to supply extra water. And based on our findings that the wells are being a little bit over pumped, and for long periods a little bit you're a little bit short on how much water you need, we're trying to look at things like reconciling the amount of fire flows that you will need, and also to look at what they call demand side management, which is trying to reduce the amount of water that people utilize and trying to look for more efficiencies within the system so that we can reduce the amount of money you have to spend in order to make up that difference. And the last thing we did is we actually found a location, should you choose to use it in the future. We'll call it well number 6, and it's to the south of well 3 and 3A. I'll show you where that is in a second. I'm going to skip this slide and that slide. This is kind of an interesting slide, and the only reason I put it in here is I wanted to show you that if you have a well here pumping and it lowers, this blue mesh would be the water table in the ground. If you pump here, it lowers the water level in that area. If you pump that down far enough, the size of this area that's influenced is going to start to influence this next well over here and that one over there. So it kind of graphically illustrates the concept of mutual well interference, which is an issue you have with well 3 and 3A, and then between well 4 and well 5. Number 2 is okay. What causes problems with well efficiency? Well, most people really don't want to see what a video looks like down in a water well, but this over here on the right is due to mineral incrustation. And if you can just appreciate, groundwater has a certain amount of soluble mineralization in it. When you pump it through the screens, there's an electrical and a chemical, there's a whole pile of funky stuff that happens, and you get precipitation of mostly iron and manganese carbonates, and it blocks up the screen. And that's no different than, as we all get older, we have to go into the doctor and get a checkup when our blood pressure goes up a bit, because we're trying to push the same amount of blood through a smaller blood vein, whereas this, we're trying to pump the same amount of water through less area in the screen. The well doesn't like it, and you get more drawdown than you would expect to occur. Another example is here. This is biofouling. There are certain type of aerobic and anaerobic bacteria that will reside in the bottom of a well, and if they're left unchecked for a long period of time, you can get plugging of the well screens, and in this case you can't even see the well screen here, it's so plugged up. And also you can get this type of thing. This is the intake on the middle of a pump that's down in the bottom of the well, and it's so plugged up you can't pump anything through that pump. So a little bit of cleaning there, but well screens typically require cleaning from time to time to recover the efficiency that's lost because of plugging. And you've had, I think most of your wells have gone through a cleaning about every 5 years or so. So this is a slide that's in response to the nitrate levels. This is a contoured plot of nitrate concentrations, and I just want to draw your attention to this little scale over here. Red is bad, blue is good. So this is your well 3, 3A, this is your well 2, this is your well 4 and 5. They're all in pretty good shape. They have low concentrations of nitrate. These plots off to the side here show how nitrate concentrations have changed with time. We don't have really good data for every well, but we have good data for some wells. Of particular importance here is well number 2, which is your workhorse, and you can see that nitrate levels were going down in the early 2000s. They went up a bit, but since then they have been coming down, which is a good thing. Whereas up to the north over here near the hospital, there's a well here that has been monitored for some time by the Ministry of Environment, and you can see levels went up, they came down, and they're increasing. So we suspect there's some type of activity over here that is influencing the nitrate levels in the wells. So the next thing you would want to do is to superimpose on that your land use. And so I draw particular attention. There's some agricultural activity here. There's agricultural activities here. This is park. This is commercial industrial. And you have, in a few places here, you have institutional practices. So I'm going to flip quickly back to that guy so you can see where our nitrate levels are. And I'm going to click back to that. And now here's the most important slide in all of this, is these red areas here are what we call capture zones. And capture zones are when you pump water from a well, there's an area of the aquifer that it will pull the water towards the well. And the interesting thing about this is that well number 2 draws water from over towards the Kettle River. Now we combine the capture zone for well 3 and 3A because they're so close to each other, but you can see this capture zone is moving over to also pulling water from the Kettle River. The capture zone for 4 and 5 over here is doing the same thing. It would extend down and eventually intersect the level, or the river. I might add that the time that these capture zones represent is a 1-year time of travel, which means that when you're pumping water from this well, it's going to take 1 year for the water to move all the way from here over to that well. That's a good thing in relation to this thing we call GUDI, groundwater under the direct influence. Because groundwater under the direct influence is water that is pulled from surface water that may have bacteria or different types of microorganisms in it that are not healthy. And basically what we're taking advantage here is our own in-house treatment system in the ground, which is filtering all of that out for us. So the fact that we have 1 year time of travel to the river, and even more in the case of 4.5 and 3.3.8, is a very good thing. Now, one thing that we did in addition to that was we tried to find a location somewhere in the city here where we thought you could put a well and not have to deal with nitrate issues and have good water quality, and also not to interfere with your existing wells. And the location that would be optimum for a new well is down here, and so this is kind of what we would call a proposed well number 6 down here. So groundwater protection planning is something that we're just getting started on. This is a process that is being driven by Interior Health. And the main issues are they're looking for a contingency or emergency response plan from you folks. I know that you prepared a draft one a few years ago, and I don't think it ever got adopted. I think it was just in discussion with Interior Health, and it never moved forward. They're also looking for monitoring and protection of your source. Now, they're going to focus on nitrates. You don't have a nitrate issue, as we've shown. The nitrate concentrations are away from your wells, and your capture zones extend away from those areas. So that's a really good thing. What they're going to try and focus on is this whole business of GUDI, and we've just recently found out that there's a new initiative through Interior Health called Groundwater Quality Treatment Objectives. And basically that is if you have any hint of biological or bacteriological issues, they're going to want to see you provide what they call dual barrier treatment. But everything that we've done so far, you don't have those issues. So I'll get to a slide in a minute where we summarize where we're going with all of this. Again, groundwater under the direct influence. Very quickly, if you have a shallow well, that's a problem. If you're too close to a surface water body, that's a problem. If you have a history of bacteriological issues, that's a problem. If you have a history of elevated turbidity, none of your wells have these issues based on all the data that we have. And it's more than just your data. It's data that the ministry has been collecting in the area for many years, since the late 1980s. This groundwater quality treatment, it's still under development. Fortunately, I can say that I sit on the review board on behalf of industry, working with the province to make sure that these regulations that are coming out are fair. You can't say one day that everything is okay, the next day say it's not, and leave a lot of water suppliers in a dilemma. So we're trying to make sure that these regulations are staged, that they're fair, and so we can work easily with the Ontario Health Authority. They're also trying to link groundwater quality to turbidity, and you do not have turbidity issues in your wells. For surface water, turbidity is a problem because it creates a problem for the chlorination process. But again, you don't have turbidity, so it's not a problem. So to summarize, I think there's a lot of good things that have come out of this study. At the end of the day, again, we've tried to prioritize what actions you need to consider in the long run for the sustainable management of your resource. And we just need to focus on the important things here, which is your water quality meets all the guidelines and there's no negative trends in nitrates that exist in the areas of your wells. That is a big thing around here because of all the attention that has been focused on nitrate impacts in the aquifer. I've said earlier, your quantity is potentially an issue in the long run. Right now you're doing okay. You're overutilizing the wells a little bit. But, you know, depending on how demand-side management initiatives go, if you can reduce some of your demand, or if you have increased demands on your system through population or industry growth or whatever, in the long run, you're probably going to need to increase your capacity. We're saying through our asset evaluation program that we think you should limit investments in particular well number 2, well number 3A, and well number 4, and accumulate funds for replacement wells. Now, when I say don't put money into number 3A, I'm saying, okay, 3A will probably be good for another 5 or 10 years, but when you go to replace 3A, you want to just put your new 3A or 3B, whatever you want to call it, a little bit further away from well number 3 so that we limit the amount that they interfere with each other. You can probably use a lot of the existing infrastructure that you have, so it's not as expensive a proposition as you think it might be. We've identified a location for a new well for you to the southeast of 3 and 3A, should you wish to put that in the future. We want to highlight that your wells are not goody, and we want to use that argument with the Ontario Health Authority to make sure that you don't have to treat at source. Right now you treat for residual within your distribution system. You don't want to treat at source because it costs an awful lot of money. So that's the findings of the study. I'm not sure if we have any time for questions. I know you have a tight schedule and I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No, thank you very much. Any council questions for Remy?
Mr.
From?
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Councillor Kendel.
The one thing, I guess, there's a Kettle River watershed study that's in the
Yes.
process of being done, and I'm sure that ties in somewhat to your studies here as far as providing, I guess, the source water for the rivers and other things. So,
Sure.
has that been taken into account?
Well, we've had an opportunity to review the Kettle River Watershed Management Plan. We've had quite a bit of discussion with Graham and his group. We've also spoken with Summit Environmental that have done the work. At the end of the day, the water levels in your wells are certainly a function of the levels in the river. But keep in mind that the depths of the wells are significantly lower than the depth of the river. And yes, it's true that when you pump your wells, you're pulling water from the aquifer, and some of that water that's being pulled from the aquifer is being replenished by losses from the river. So if that river was to go down a significant amount, the amount of available drawdown, the submergence for your pumps would be lowered a bit, but the historical levels in the Kettle River do not suggest that you would ever have a problem with that. Nor, I might add, there's not a lot of I can't see that there would be so much more development occurring in the upper catchment of the Kettle River watershed such that it would significantly reduce the levels in the river. So yes, we are a little bit vulnerable to drought. You might lose 5 or 10% of the capacity of your wells just because you have less drawdown or submergence for the pumps. And we've identified which of the wells are most vulnerable to that. And I can tell you well number 2 is the most vulnerable to that, but well number 2 is your most efficient well at the same time. So it's a bit of a trade-off. So we've considered those things. We haven't done any really detailed calculations, but we have all the tools in place now to be able to predict what would happen if the level in the river dropped significantly, which I don't think it would be.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions for Mr. Eller? Hearing none. Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure. Good evening.
Excellent. Good news for us. And a motion to accept report. Councillor Wyers, Councillor Kendel. All those in favor? Throw them out there, don't I? Neil's the only one that notices when I'm faking it. Okay. The next group to present to us is well known to everyone, the Cascade Kettle River Heritage Trail Project. Sir.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff, public. I stand before you tonight as a proud member of the Grand Forks Community Trail Society to present to council a vision that our society is pursuing for our region over the next few years. Our society is well used to pursuing projects over the long term. We've gained a lot of expertise at that, and that we believe that the city has benefited tremendously from the vision that we've purported to the public. Tonight I wish to share with you a new vision. That is of a paved trail from the 68th Street Bridge, or the Industrial Street Bridge, Roxall Bridge, all the way out to Nursery, and from Nursery to Gilpin, and from Gilpin to Cascade. 17.4 kilometers altogether. This is a big project. It's a big vision. We believe that it's got tremendous benefits for the region and for trails within the region. So what's involved? Well, it's obviously a major upgrade to the existing Trans-Canada Trail. The existing trail is there. It's rideable, walkable, but it's certainly not easily walkable for seniors or for toddlers or for the handicapped. It goes from 68th Bridge to Cascade Gorge Trestle. We'd like to think that it's going to become a safe alternative to Highway 3. You still see the road bikers and many other pedestrian users on the highway because of the lower resistance of pavement to their things, to their vehicles. We believe that it's accessible to all ages and abilities, and that is a city, that is one of the struggles that you purport to play on. And as Rick Hansen just went through, I was a medal bearer for that. I know that it's a long time coming to bring that accessibility to the handicapped. It's been within Canada now for 25 years. And still, it does pain me, it frustrates me a little bit when people are quite willing to deny that kind of accessibility to the wheelchair and to the handicapped. We must make our environment accessible. And we have to showcase the Kettle River. This is the very best of the boundary. 2 provincial parks, tremendous access to the Kettle, to the public, to the river, and this project will provide access. And that's what trails do, is trails provide access to the environment for all the trail users. And what we've done is we just increased the number of trail users dramatically. Goes through 2 provincial parks, and it connects communities. And besides connecting communities, it'll engage people in the boundary landscape and the history. So what does it look like now? Well, I took some pictures today. It was kind of cold out there today. That's not today. But I wanted to show you this. I want to make sure you all understand this. With the previous council, and through this one, I carried on. There's a land swap with Roxall. And as part of the deal, Roxall built a parking lot. Now, let's see if I can get this little button to. Before, people who used it as part of the trail would park up here, right at the south edge of that bridge. Now, there's quite an option. This parking lot here, which looks to me like about 50 by 100. Roxall is probably going to build a kiosk here at this end, and then the trail at road level, so you don't have anything to go up. And here's my truck there today. Roxall's done a lot of work there. They brought in a loader from Vernon to do it, to fulfill their obligation. You can see the trail leading from the parking lot, right there. Now we're looking back at it. They brought in a lot of dirt. Incidentally, what they're going to do with this area down here is they're just going to let it revert back to nature. That is, it will probably fill up with water seasonally, become a bit of a lagoon area. They are going to replant with black cottonwood and indigenous shrubs in this area. So it's sort of going to revert back to a natural area. Now, this is something I think the city needs to be alerted to. I have tried to alert staff to it. This is the ramp. This ramp has been redone quite dramatically. It's got a much better angle to it now. But it does, because of that, and because of its new width, it just looks a little bit scary to me at the top here. And I'm thinking that part of this project would be to put some sort of barricade here, crossing, because of course the bridge is right here. Walking along. So this is, I'm going to take you on a quick little journey now from pictures from different times of the year. Up the trail. It's become a single track. It was resurfaced. This trail is on city property. It is a city trail. Currently the city does mow it. And it takes you to the back of Roxall, through the back of Roxall to the nursery trestle. And you can see the terrace and pipeline over that trestle. For a little bit further on, well, one of the branding exercises in the past came up with this. The Trans-Canada Trail is our backyard. You see these signs throughout the boundary. And even though it's a little bit dated, these signs, I believe it really does show the community's pride in its trails. This is Boothman's Slough, where you're about to Boothman's Park. The Trans-Canada Trail Society and Trans-Canada Trail Foundation, rather, and the Province of British Columbia and the Trail Society, as well as other groups, have put money in over the years into these trails. So there's access parking, there's signage and rock gardens, and you can see that part of the challenge has been to keep it mowed. That because of the vehicle, because it rarely gets vehicle use, the trail does have a tendency to grow in. These are if you disregard that old pine, you can see that this is one of the very accessible public beaches in the new Gilpin Park. So the trail will bring everybody closer to those areas. And there we are standing on the trail overlooking the Boothman Slough area. Here we are. This is a little bit of a detail. This is the Cascade Gorge Trestle. Now, this trestle has actually been decked, I don't know, is it twice? Twice. It's been decked twice, handrailed twice. And this is a group of people. It was a rec department last year. It was a sponsored ride. Then there's lots of kids, and everybody's milling around. And that's the Cascade Gorge Trestle. So we just took a quick look at the whole thing. So what's it going to cost? Well, these are big numbers. But as you know, there was an intake for a community recreation grant right back there in January and February, and we put together a proposal sponsored by Area D of the regional district for those funds for a grant. We're successful, but as part of that process, we were really able to start our homework. Figure out what exactly is it going to take. We're basing our numbers on the North Star Trail in Cranbrook Kimberley. We're basing our numbers on the city's paved trails project, and in discussion with a contractor, what it would take. And so basically it works out to about $100,000 a kilometer. How can we afford it? Well, the first stage is stage 1. That's a good place to start. 68th and Nursery Trestle. Now, not all of this is city land, but about 900 meters of it is on city property, city trail. The reason I put 2012 there is that the work has already started. You've seen the parking lot. That's already there. That alone is going to be a major improvement for trail users. We're hoping that if the city sees fit to come in on this, to partner with us, that we will be able to leverage the city's money. That is, match it is what we're after, right? So between Roxall, Trans-Canada Trail Foundation, Ministry of Forest, Lands, Natural Resource Operations, the federal government, Phoenix Foundation, others, the hope is that the city doesn't have to pay for all of that. That we will leverage whatever funds the city can contribute. Stage 2 is the major one, from Nursery Trestle to Gilpin Grasslands Provincial Park. There's the cost. Obviously now we're looking for the regional district to play a part. This is within Area D. BC Parks is also willing to play a part. Federal government, somebody suggested to me that we should be looking for community living funds through the Ministry of Health. The others, well, there will be other people whom the Trails Group will apply for grants for this project. Okay, it's not limited to those that you see there. Finally, Gilpin to Cascade, Area C, and again, perhaps the Canadian military, who just this past weekend were decking their 4th or 5th trestle on a Texas Point. They've decked 2 of them on the Trans-Canada Trail. And maybe that we could find a role for them to play too in this project. The project does have challenges. Okay, how does the first one that's a major project that has to be addressed is how do you manage motorized traffic? Well, the earliest way you try to do is you put up some barriers. Here's a bullard. Mr. Longden is working on. This is basically this is up at Fisherman Creek. A bullard is just a post in the ground. And we've gone through 3 or 4 different generations of these things. Here's a swing gate. This one's at Highway 395. And a rock garden. I think you can sort of see the expression rock garden. So that a lot of the trail, well, not so much this section, but the Trans-Canada Trail, basically from Fife up into Blueberry Paulson, as well as from Grand Forks towards Eagle, has got to be open for industrial use. So you have to be able to get industrial vehicles through it, and you have to be able to get maintenance vehicles as well as emergency vehicles, so i.e. you need a gate. Self-closing gates for pedestrians, you should try to put up both types of gates. And over the years, the Trails Group has tried various things. This is a rock garden at the west side of Smith and Trestle, in trying to manage motorized traffic. Unfortunately, it's not every motorized user. That's the problem. It's basically the behavior of a few that does threaten everybody. And so that really, if there was local bylaws and enforcement, I know the city has a bylaw about motorized vehicles on their trails. The regional district doesn't. But even more importantly, the provincial laws requiring the licensing and registering of all outdoor recreational vehicles would go a long way to managing this problem. We hope to be, we are currently in conversation with the Grand Forks ATV Club and installing gates that would help manage motorized traffic. Here we are working on a new gate system, lowering lock blocks into the ground up at Eagle Ridge, together with the ATV Club. And there's sort of what it looks like to this date, and that a swing gate will go through here. Because of the positioning of the lock blocks, vehicles will not be able to go through, that is, regular sized vehicles will not be able to go through without permission. We have to make the project welcome equestrians. Not every trail user, people are using the trail now, is going to be happy that we pave it. I want to make the point to the public that equestrians are always welcome on the Trans-Canada Trail. They are a core group, have been since the beginning. And that a braided trail in this right-of-way is quite possible in much of it. Much of this trail is within a 100-foot right-of-way. The actual pavement would take up 10 feet, up to 90 feet. We can do it. We will always have horse-friendly gates. We might have the expansion of trail rides. We're trying to welcome equestrians, work with them. Maybe we'll sponsor equestrian events. Why use asphalt? Well, the Trails Group did explore several other different surfaces that were possible. Some required a resin to be poured on the ground. Others were both a mixture of reused asphalt with new asphalt, a crush. Again, though, when we inquired to all the other paved trails users, as well as the large urban areas in our province, they use asphalt on their trails because it's the most durable and cost efficient. That's why we pave roads. After it cures, it is inert in the environment. It prevents grass growth and it's easy to maintain. And this, of course, is why the owner of the trail, that is the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resource Operations, one of their big things is that's why they want to see it paved. Because they want to see it more easily maintained and more sustainable. The low resistance surface, of course, allows for greatest ease of use, and the resurfaced trail will increase public attention and involvement with key environmental issues. Basically, we're going to take more people into parks. We're going to make more people environmentally aware. Hopefully building volunteerism for such environmental causes as the amphibian migration. I like to think of that. Well, this concept has been very successful in other places. Kimberley is in the second year of a 25-kilometer paved trail. Basically, the two municipalities each paid 1/2 of 1/3, or 1/6, of the total budget. The province paid 1/3, the federal government paid 1/3. Another trail that many people in the boundary are familiar with is the Spokane to Coeur d'Alene Trail. So there's a picture of the North Star Trail. Notice it's two bike lanes side by side, and the pavement and the crush. Here's a little snap of the Spokane Coeur d'Alene Trail. Runs right beside the Spokane River. The Hiawatha Trail, well, it's not paved. I've included it because it's kind of an interesting one because they have the only way you get to use it is if you buy a ticket, and they're busy all summer long. They're constantly being used. And basically your ticket gets you the shuttle ride up there. You can rent the bike, that'd be extra. And it's abandoned rail grade. The seawall in Vancouver, of course. Well, this is another Centennial Trail. It's Snohomish County, paved. Seawall in Vancouver. And trails in Ontario, including this one in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. And there's more I could list. Who supports this project? Well, this is going back to earlier this year. The owner is a big supporter of the project. BC Parks, from who the project will, they see it as a direct benefit to them. Area D, in the past, sponsored the past application. The City of Grand Forks, the mayor wrote a letter. He's quoted on the back of your package. It was one of those things where the mayor wrote the letter, right? Council didn't pass the motion. Sorry, Mayor. But, it came in on letterhead. And it's up to you, folks. It's up to you, Council, to provide your support formally. City of Greenwood, again, Nick or Kendel is quoted on the back here. The Boundary Communities Regional Chamber of Commerce, they certainly support it. They see the advantage commercially into sustaining businesses. Trails BC, Trans-Canada Trail Foundation, of course, they're at a point where they really would like to showboat the Trans-Canada Trail. And our community is a real natural portal for it. Grand Forks Cycling Club, mountain bikers, the Grand Forks ATV Club recognize that the use and importance of this paved area that would be non-motorized. And they're willing to respect that. Many private citizens, I've got some names here, people who've written letters, people who both live in Area C and Area D. And we still get gestures of support. So the next steps, what do we do next? Well, here's what we're doing today. Local elected officials are going to consult with constituents and make a decision on level of support. That's what we're putting towards you, for you to do. Meanwhile, the trails groups, that's us, we've got to go agree on usage. We've got to sit down and talk to the ATV club, talk to the equestrians, talk to maybe the Nordic skiers, and come to agreement on what kind of trails can be shared and what can't be. We have to take a look at the survey of adjacent landowners for needs and suggestions. And this is something we've been doing all along, of course. This is nothing new. We've been constantly working with adjacent landowners on for years as this trail has been in place. We have to lobby senior governments. This is something that both the local government and the Trails Group is going to do. The Trails Group is going to apply for funding grants as these become available. We'll go figure out all the permits and get all those ducks in a row. This is the work set out for the society. This is what the society is volunteering to do. We will try to promote the idea with trails events, and we are going to allow for public discussion and input, because we know that something that this big and with this much benefit is certainly going to bring discussion. We're asking people to find us on Facebook, join the Trail Society, or contribute to trail building wherever they are. And it's always a pleasure to walk by part of the trail and see an adjoining neighbor mowing the lawn or planting flowers and stewarding it a little bit. And if everybody who walks some of our trails just pause for a minute to help contribute to trail building, pulling Horiolism, picking up garbage, whatever. That is always a big help. Anyhow, I have left in front of you our brochure with the notes, which are the bare bones of a PowerPoint presentation. And we are going to distribute this. We know that we're going to have to sell this in distant places. Montreal, Victoria, Vancouver, Grand Forks. So we want to have something that looks presentable, that will carry the message in a clear way. Anyhow, that's it for my presentation, Mayor. I've taken a long enough time. I'm quite willing to entertain questions.
Councillor Krog.
Sure, I guess. I'll ask you a
I thought your hand
question.
went up.
After you asked me if I wanted to ask a question, it went up, but it didn't go up before
Could have
that.
been just twitching.
Maybe it's...
Do you have a question?
Sure, why not? No.
I wanted to ask one of the whale guy.
Braided trail.
I'm sorry, what?
Braided trail. Can you
Yes.
define braided
A
trail?
braided trail generally is where you have two trails or more going to the same place that are parallel. Sometimes they braid like this, they cross back and forth.
Okay.
You see that in the Myra Canyon area actually, where you have pedestrian over the old trestles, which have been refurbished, but you also have a trail for all-terrain vehicles that goes around it. So
Okay.
it goes to the same place, but runs parallel.
Okay.
So were you second? Are you in the second round of the infrastructure, or does that not qualify?
Well, we decided not to. That had a November 19th
Right.
deadline, Mayor. And we decided as a group, you know what? We really got a lot more public discussion to do. We're confident that sometime in the next 6 months, our grants are going to come out, and we will be putting together more grant proposals. So,
Councillor
quick answer
Smith.
to your question is no, we didn't
No,
apply.
I got that. Councillor Smith.
Have you explored any, like adopt a trail, that sort of thing? Or do you have that in place?
We do,
Okay.
and we within our community, we certainly see trail stewards. We don't have one time we did have an adopt. We're going to try to get one of those going. You see them on other longer trails, like certain sections are sponsored by different groups. But I find that the community has adopted their trails, and they look after them very beautifully. And when they can't, they ask for help. They phone, and the trails group does something, or asks the city to go do something. And I find that trails are very beautifully stewarded, and basically that the existing trail is a testimony to the volunteerism in the Boundary region, that it's lasted this long, is in as good a shape as it is.
Further question? Seeing none. Mr. Motlin, excellent presentation, and we wish you the best moving forward with this. It's a big project, but you're a big guy.
You're welcome, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And a motion to accept the report. Councillor Wyers, Councillor ODoherty. All those in favor? Okay, just gonna wait for a second here. Okay, we're gonna.
was a dog.
Oh, really? Looked like a horse. I know.
All right.
It's a lot bigger than since last time I saw it.
We're going to carry on, and the next presentation is from the Kootenay Boundary Pet Dog Association, and I just want to clarify a bit of understandings first, that the animal control contract is with the regional district. We're a partner in it as a service, and so the bylaw that you're referring to at this point are bylaw options, and the bylaw is under review. So in fact your timing is impeccable. We will be able to receive your presentation today and pass on your presentation to the regional district animal control group, if that would be acceptable.
That would
The
be.
floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. My name is Anita Krause, and I'm standing in for Sandy McKelir, and I represent the Kootenay Boundary Pet Dog Association. As a group of citizens interested in the well-being of pet dogs, in the city of Grand Forks and the surrounding regional districts, we would like to propose several additions and amendments to the animal welfare and control bylaws. We would further like to address the zoning regulations which would restrict small breeding programs and home-based dog boarding facilities. It is important to us that the people of Grand Forks and the surrounding areas providing service for pets and their owners have a secure base to carry on their work. Pet owners require safe places to leave their pets while on vacation or during medical and family emergencies and hospital stays. So it is essential that there be licensed boarding kennels accessible to everyone. Grooming businesses and training classes and facilities are essential as well to many dog owners. This area has also established an international reputation of respectable, responsible dog breeders producing pet puppies that are healthy, well socialized, and an asset to the pet-loving community. There are successful and well-used facilities currently in existence. We propose that they be brought into accordance with any regulations and allowed to continue their work in the community. We would like the city and area to be known as a dog-friendly rather than a dog-restrictive place in order to be a part of the worldwide lucrative pet industry. The regional district is looking into a bylaw that would restrict the number of dogs per household, which would put an end to small breeders and boarding facilities on which we depend. It would prevent pet owners from having a single litter of puppies, which is both unreasonable and ungovernable. We propose that the city and area look at its own dog regulations at this time so that a considered and effective approach could be implemented in the whole region. We do not believe that it is the number of dogs in a household that constitutes a nuisance, but the care of the dogs. One dog at large is, or constantly barking, whether tethered, constitutes a nuisance, while a group of dogs being properly cared for in a small private facility does not. We would like the city and the regional district to effectively deal with nuisance dogs by 1. Examining the current bylaws and animal control for the city. What's working and what isn't? Are there more effective regulations in other communities which could be implemented here? 2. Applying and enforcing standards for breeders and boarding facilities that would ensure dogs are properly cared for and not being a nuisance to the community. 3. Enabling responsible breeders and boarding facilities to operate in an authorized space while satisfying the standards adopted by the city and district. We have attached proposed changes to the city and area's bylaws for your consideration. With our thanks, the Kootenay Boundary Pet Dog Association. And if there are any questions.
Council? Anita, I was looking at it, comparing it to the current bylaw, and there were some comparisons, but it looks like you put together a lot more research from other bylaws that you pulled in to create the one that you're presenting to us?
That's correct.
And what other communities have you tapped?
There is a list on the back
I'm sorry, I didn't
of
see
where
that. Okay.
it's the final page.
Okay.
Our proposal information came from researching the bylaws of Kelowna, BC, Pitt Meadows, BC, Brooks, Alberta, Calgary, Alberta, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick.
Wow, okay, I didn't see that page. Thank you.
Yes.
Council, further questions? So, it looks like a timely presentation for us to look at our own internal one, but in fact we share a single bylaw with the region, so it would apply to the whole regional area that buys into animal control.
That's correct.
So that takes us to the outskirts of Greenwood to Christina Lake currently. Councillor Krog.
Yeah, I'd be willing to make a motion to, which is option 2, which is to receive the report or receive the presentation and then to forward it to the regional district.
And the seconder for that motion, Councillor Wyers. Discussion? Do you want to kick at the can first, though, in terms of referring it to the regional district? You want to look at how it fits our needs before it's passed on to them, where I would have some input, but you wouldn't. So we could give it some time over the next month or so for council to have input into it, in consideration maybe of some of the changes suggested. But it doesn't negate your motion. All right. All those in favor? Carried. So we are going to pass that on to the regional district. Thank you very much.
I have copies of the presentation I did for each of you. Could I pass them
You could
to
certainly
Diane?
leave that at the front desk.
Thank you. And thank you for your time.
All right, we have no unfinished business. We have a CAO's report on proposed closures of City Hall during the Christmas week. We've had an opportunity to look at this. I think it suits our purposes both in being a humane organization and controlling costs. Councillor ODoherty, second. Councillor Smith, discussion?
This goes against the Scrooge doctrine.
Well, no, I think it's very well crafted, and basically it utilizes our energies where they're best spent and doesn't keep us here on days when no one's around.
And an extra lump of coal.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay. And we do allow gallery input at this point in time in the primary committee meeting before we go back to the regular. And in the regular meeting, we will also have input from the public at the end of the meeting. So anyone on the primary committee issues here this evening, please. George. Mr. Long.
Yes. Good evening, Your Worship, members of City Council. I'm wearing my Trails hat as well as my Community Christmas Dinner hat tonight. And we just had our second meeting of the Community Christmas Dinner group this afternoon. And our planning is well underway for the Community Christmas Dinner, which will happen on Christmas Day at noon. We'll be renting the Gospel Chapel again and serving a fabulous meal. What I'm looking for from council is a representative that will bring greetings from the city to our dinner.
Thank you, Mr. Longden, and I would be pleased to do that. I haven't checked my schedule or my family commitments, but I will ensure that we have a representative there from council and maybe more than one.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and motion to adjourn into the regular meeting. So moved. Okay, so we are in the regular meeting of council, and the first item of business is the agenda, which we are about to modify. So the agenda item that we wish to remove is, we'll go down here. Right. Yes, is the item 10A, closure of Industrial Parkway as per Roxall request. What we were looking at there were a couple of items in terms of proposed changes and realignment. There has been some misunderstandings, minor but important enough that we'd like to remove it from the agenda this evening and deal with it on another agenda. And I have a motion to accept the amended agenda, removing item 10A. Councillor ODoherty, Councillor Smith, any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, and back to the beginning of the meeting. We have 2 sets of minutes. The November 5th special meeting minutes, a motion to adopt. Councillor ODoherty, Councillor Krog, all those in favor? Carried. And November 5th regular meeting minutes, motion to adopt. Councillor Kendel, Councillor Krog, all those in favor? No petitions or delegations. We are down to council reports, and I'll start with Councillor Wyers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no report this week.
I always do that.
I know.
Councillor ODoherty.
Yes, Your Worship. I attended on the 11th of November, Remembrance Day, at the City Hall here and the Legion. And I also attended at the Boundary Lodge and Hartleyville Lodge for the meetings. And in my part of sports, all the teams are doing good. Our hockey team started to win, so
Yes, I heard that.
yeah, so everything is looking good here. So that's all I got, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Wyers.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start this evening with my report with the attendance on November 7th to MCON Services Winter Stakeholders Meeting at MCON, where there was an excellent open discussion following their presentation and an opportunity for the city to link into MCON's weather reporting for the upcoming season, of which I will submit to our CAO for consideration. I also attended the Boundary Restorative Justice meeting on November the 8th. The group is currently involved in 2 active forums referred by the RCMP. I was unable to attend the Phoenix Foundation this 15th annual anniversary 15th anniversary event due to a prior commitment the same evening, but can report that both the Restorative Justice and Citizens on Patrol organizations did set up information tables in recognition of the funding support that they had received from the Phoenix Foundation in 2012. On November 11th, together with many organizations from the community and led by the Royal Canadian Legion Colour Party, we paid tribute on Remembrance Day to those who gave their lives for our freedom. I want to also recognize the Silver Cross Mother this year. Was chosen by the Royal Canadian Legion to lay the wreath at the National War Memorial in Ottawa. And that mother was Roxanne Preed, who stands today as our country's symbol of the mothers who lost their children at war. So Master Corporal Daryl Jason Preed, as a reminder to everyone each year, served twice in Bosnia as a gunner in the Royal Canadian Artillery. In 2007, he journeyed to Afghanistan as a photographer with the Air Force, giving the outside world a look at, through the lens of his camera, the war-torn parts of the world that we don't see. After only a month there, he perished as his helicopter crashed during a major offensive strike against the Taliban. So, in deepest regards to the family, and as an honor to Mrs. Preed, the recognition that she received was very forthcoming. On November the 14th, I attended a stakeholders meeting for the Boundary Country Regional Chamber of Commerce, where a continued 5-year commitment was presented by Community Futures to pay the executive director's wages and cover support services needed to move the regional chamber initiative forward. Their current membership is 160 members, with the vision of achieving 300 into the future. Community leaders in attendance gave their individual support and recommendations, as well as recognizing the volunteer board and staff for persevering through a difficult process in bringing the regional business community together. The City of Grand Forks has received a funding request from the Regional Chamber for consideration at our 2013 budget. On November the 14th, the Boundary Dog Sled Association group met, and the group is planning to participate in the 2013 Christina Lake Winterfest, the first week in February, proposing dog sled sprint races to engage youth with the concept of hitching their family pet to a sleigh. So, and they're also in the process of restructuring the 2014 Rail Trail 200 event for next year's, for the 2014 race. November the 15th saw the regular meeting of Citizens on Patrol. Former councillor and current Environment Committee participant Chris Moslin presented a partnership idea to the group to participate in nephelometer air quality monitoring by carrying the portable unit during their evening patrols. So the support was unanimous from Citizens on Patrol, and the first monitoring actually took place last Saturday evening, November 17th. And this is an excellent opportunity to utilize community volunteer time and resources. And just a few reminders. The Grand Forks Environment Committee meets this Thursday, November 22nd at 11 o'clock at the Regional District Boardroom here in Grand Forks, and it is open to the public. The Christina Lake Stewardship Society invites everyone to the Christina Lake Watershed Management Plan annual review, and this invitation is on Wednesday, December the 5th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Christina Lake Community Hall. Pre-registration is required by December the 1st, and you can contact Brenda LaCroix at 250-447-2504 or clss@shaw.ca. This is an excellent opportunity to support our local lake to the east and their water conservation and initiatives for their watershed. A reminder that the Santa Parade is Friday evening, December the 7th at 7 p.m., so don't forget to register your at the dollar store and start decorating. The Grand Forks Public Library regular monthly meeting is this Wednesday, November the 21st at 7 p.m. in the library meeting room, and it is also open to the public, and we encourage the public's attendance to see what is going on at your local library. And also, I just wanted to remind councillors that the AKBLG has forwarded the Columbia Treaty Review Workshop on November 28th in Castlegar that local government can participate in, and that is a 1-hour session that is open, and I hope to see a group of us going over. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kendel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also attended on November 7th, attended the MCON yearly review. Found it really informative. A lot of questions that most of us have driving on the roads were answered there, and I thought it was nice that if there are any questions from the general public, they welcome them at MCON, and they would prefer that the general public gets their answers directly from them versus any rumors or anything else that goes on out there. November 11th, I attended the Legion ceremonies. I found it very moving and enjoyed that. I attended the meeting of the Boundary Museum Society. They have many exciting new projects going on there, and I commend them on their initiatives. It's nice to see they're excited about what has been going on and what's going to go on in the future. Lastly, I attended a Downtown Merchants Business Association meeting, and it's very encouraging to see the downtown business leaders coming together to formulate a group to have a united voice as to the direction they'd like to see the downtown go, and work in cooperation with the city to achieve those objectives. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Councillor Krog.
Some of mine has been covered. I will be attending a board meeting or a gallery board meeting tomorrow night, and they've set it up that as part of the agenda, they've made accommodations for us to actually be on their agenda. So if there's any questions, concerns, or comments that council has, I can bring those forward to that meeting. And I guess the only other thing that wasn't covered was just spent the weekend up at Christina Lake with the 39th Combat Engineer Regiment that Chris Moslin was talking about in the 44th Engineer Squadron in their operation to replace the bridge. So he said redact, but no, they're replacing it with a whole thing. And it was pretty impressive. A whole bunch of younger soldiers all working in the weather, and you know what the weather was like on the weekend. So it was pretty impressive to see them do their stuff, and that's about it.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the 8th, I attended the Phoenix birthday celebration, their 15th anniversary, and well attended, and it featured a keynote speech by Wendy Eddy, who's also known as the Hope Lady. So she gave a very inspiring talk on the power of hope and how hope can achieve many things. On the 11th, along with many of the other councillors and yourself, I attended the Remembrance Day session at the Cenotaph. And then on the 13th, with Councillor Kendel, I was at the business, the Merchants Association meeting. And again, to repeat that, it's very encouraging to see these folks coming together with some fire to get themselves to work on helping themselves to revitalize downtown with the support of council and staff. And I'd like to make a motion actually for council to direct staff to organize an open house to gather input from the downtown merchants and other community or other citizens on what the city is working on to assist the downtown core, and to see what feedback they can give back to us.
So this would be an invitation to City Hall to an open house to discuss?
I would actually think probably Seniors Hall would be a better venue. That way it can accommodate more people, and
okay.
But the details really could be worked out.
Leave that. And the seconder for that motion, Councillor ODoherty. And the timing would be at the also left open to planning with the staff.
That's correct.
Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Smith, further?
Oh, no, that's
it?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of items. I was at the Ag Society meeting, the Agricultural Society, a very healthy, quiet group that's out there spinning off projects to other groups, and just to report that they are alive and well and working on a variety of new things for next year. They also are the liaison with community gardens, with the abattoir, all of that stuff. So although they don't get a lot of publicity, they're a pretty active group. Yes.
I just wanted to ask you a question at that meeting. Did they bring up anything about OMGs? Organically modified?
Yes, they did. They are attempting to pass resolutions and have those passed politically.
Oh, good. Okay.
As far as I know, to limit OMGs. And the Remembrance Day, what I'll remember is the sound system worked. And we've been working with that sound system for a long time, so thank you very much, whoever set that up. That was great to be able to really hear people for a change. Excellent job.
It was unfortunate that the chairs weren't used. It's like people were waiting for some delegation to come in there and use them. I mean, they didn't get used. It was a good idea.
Yes, it was.
Was it RPA system? Or?
It was the
Yes.
RPA system, but it was set up in a way that really worked well. So you could hear what people were saying, which is really nice.
The chairs were cold. That's why people weren't sitting on it.
December 4th is the first sit-down at the regional district table to discuss the specific budgets that we share with the regional district. So face-to-face budget discussions on the 4th, and we will have staff members there. The question arose at the Recreation Committee meeting, and it was to do with the future expansion of the Recreation Center. Do we or don't we want to do that? And the argument was made that now that Silver Kettle is open and various other things are beginning to occur there, is it not time for us to really look at how we can serve that group and have them contribute to a more successful operation at the recreation center. No decision has been made, but we have put it on the table for discussion. Councillor Marjean is also a member of that committee. Do you have any further comments on the rec?
No, I found it.
Yeah, it's a dynamic group. Thank you. The regional district report, if I could roll this in as well, it usually gets melded together at this point. Illegal dumping report came forward, which we have been asking for, and not good news. The regional district doesn't really want to get into chasing down illegal dumping. And basically the bottom line was they were suggesting that we have some kind of educational program, and that if we really want to see some of these illegal dumps cleaned up, that we're probably going to have to do it with volunteers. They don't see a role for themselves in incurring costs. If we want to challenge that, we can, but that's what's coming down from the regional district. The Deer Committee meeting is tomorrow morning at 9:30 at the RDKB. For those with the constitutional ability to sit in on those meetings, you're welcome. We are attempting to expand the Deer Committee as you approved the letter I wrote requesting formal involvement by the regional district, and we'll see if we do have any further involvement from the regional district. One of the more exciting things is that we have open dialogue now with the Osuyas Indian Band, and in conjunction with the local Métis Association, Bannock, will also, I understand, be at the table tomorrow. And that's my report. Could I have a motion to adopt the reports of councillors and the regional report?
So moved.
Councillor Wyers, Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the next recommendation is 10B, since we have removed 10A. An application for a development permit. Development permit application by Diana Bearden regarding property located at 477225 Boundary Drive in Triangle Gardens. And what we have here is a recommendation to approve covered deck on that in Triangle Gardens. Can I have a motion to that? Councillor ODoherty, Councillor Smith. Discussion. No problems? All those in favor? Carried. The next item of business is a development permit by Bill Ling, property owner for Valley Heights Development Inc. regarding property at 733 Riverside Drive. And the staff report approves the development permit made by Valley Heights Development, Mr. Ling, and subject to compliance with city bylaws, Ministry of Environment, and substantial compliance with the plans as presented. Councillor ODoherty, Councillor Wyers, discussion. Councillor Kendel.
I just noticed that on the plans that were provided to us, the only elevation that wasn't presented was the rear one. And when I drove into town this afternoon, I'm a little concerned with the appearance of the back of the building. It's one huge yellow wall. And again, there is no detail on any of the, it shows every elevation and every frontage except the back. And I'm just wondering if we could maybe review that, because I think it's not a very attractive picture.
So aesthetics are what you're concerned
Yeah.
about here? And could I ask for our CAO to give me a report on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of the SCP requirements, we try not to have a consistent, I can't remember the languages, but we try to move away from a wall being one consistent shape and color. We can speak to the developer as prior to the issuance of the development permit to have that looked at to meet the SCP regulations, and that was something that was potentially overlooked. I'm not sure if there's anything else in the report that we have that speak to that, but we can definitely touch base with
But
it.
there are some fixes to that situation that can be worked within this development permit.
There can be, yes.
Councillor Krog.
Yeah, just a comment. I drove by the place today and I was really impressed with the work that's taken place so far. It's gone from what, you know,
An eyesore.
I didn't say it, but
It was.
to an actual really nice looking building when it finally gets done. I think it'll be an asset to the community as well.
Yeah. Further comment? Any further question? This is to approve the development permit. All those in favor?
Just a minute, Your Honor.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, do we want to amend the resolution to include the breakup of that consistent feature at the back of the wall?
If you feel that's necessary, yes, we will. So this is to approve the amended development permit to include dealing with that single wall in the back.
Is that not the back wall, the bottom one?
Right. That's what I thought.
That's what I thought. That was the back wall?
Bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like
So
the
it
fact
is-
that it's blue on top.
Yeah, it's got the patio, so it's blue on top, and I assume it
On the
would be the same
bottom there,
color.
So, Mr. Mayor,
three
then,
triple wide doors out onto a
Mr.
concrete deck facing the water, facing the river.
So it isn't in fact a single.
So exactly, Mr. Mayor, that's,
Yeah.
the finished product would be, according to this then, would be the finished product, would be the non-consistent formation of a solid wall, so to speak.
And as such, do we need to amend this development permit?
I don't think that's going to be the finished product, no. Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And we are down to information items. Catch up. I gotta get a better way of doing this. Do you know what number it is?
Page
Yeah, page number.
84.
Thank you, Councillor Wyers. Oh. All right.
Are you okay?
I'm okay. All right, the district, no, first of all, we have a motion to accept as we dispose of these items. Councillor Smith, Councillor Kendel. District Invermere Deer Resident Survey sent to Councillor Smith. And the recommendation is that we forward this to the Deer Committee. Interesting that you should all get an opportunity to read it, though, to see what gyrations other communities are going through are very similar to what we're dealing with. But in fact, we have now several copies of other people's surveys and strategic plans, so we're taking a look at everything that's out there in the Deer Committee area that we can use. So this will go back to the Deer Committee. Columbia Power, Public Power Open House. This is the proposed strategic plan for consultation from 12 to 17, 2012 to 17. Members of council, if they wish to attend, please indicate. The Cumberland Basin Alliance for Literacy, which is Councillor Krog's area regarding community literacy process and advisory table. Councillor Krog to make note of the information provided.
Yes, I have it right here.
Letter of support request for Christina Lake Chamber, and Councillor Wyers. Councillor determined to authorize Councillor Wyers to submit her letter of support to the Christina Lake Chamber application for funding from the Enterprising Nonprofit Program, and we did that, and it did get sent off.
Yes, thank you.
Correspondence from the Ramada mayor, the mayor to the Ramada Hotel, thanking him for accommodation for Story and Company for the visioning that's going on, and the November 5th task list in progress and completed. Further questions? All those in favor? Back to the meeting. We have no bylaws, no late items, and we're ready for questions from the public and media. Ladies and gentlemen, come forward if you wish to bring up an issue.
You know who I am.
That's bad. Les Johnson.
Les Johnson. I was at the same BIA meeting that the two councils were at. And they want to get things happening. They want to put on events downtown. Events require venues.
Stage.
So what's happening with the wildlife hall?
Right now, the decision was taken by council to enact an option that we had, which we have enacted legally, giving us the right to make determination on it. Yes.
That information is in camera at this point.
Oh,
not anymore.
Okay, so
thank you very much.
Wasn't aware of that. Okay.
I thought that portion of it was gone, but
So essentially, the wildlife hall will be no more as a venue. Is that what you're saying?
I can't say any more on
Okay,
the topic
yeah, okay.
tonight. I'm sorry, I've stepped
Okay.
over my bounds.
Yeah, okay. So last Thursday at Studio B, Patrick Stevenson had this little concert, ran for hours and hours. It was a lot of fun. It was well attended. And at that concert, Bridget announced that there's only going to be one more performance at Studio B, and she's closing that door. So that's two venues from the downtown area that are just gone. At the same time that the business people were trying to get something happening. I'm just curious. Am I just bringing you that information so you're
Okay.
aware of what's going on?
Councillor Smith, and we are in camera with the issues related to the wildlife.
I don't know if you're aware, but a musicians guild has started up just recently.
Yeah, Rick told me that.
Yeah, so, certainly they'll be looking at, avenues and possibilities. So we're having our first executive meeting next week, or this week.
Okay, just so you know, the venues are disappearing as people are looking for more stuff to put into
Okay, well,
happening.
way to get me in trouble, thanks. Further.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. I'd like to start by wishing you happy anniversary or birthday, November 19th, 2011. You were elected to this position. I guess my question there is, has the council experience been what you expected?
Council, he's asking,
No
has
comment.
this lived up to your expectations? Let's ask some of the new councillors. Councillor Kendel.
It's been much more than I ever anticipated.
Much more?
Yes.
That's always good.
Councillor
So far, I've
Smith.
loved it. It's been a very, very positive experience overall.
And the rest of the bandits have all been here before, so.
Yeah, but
Knew what they were getting.
they were up for re-election.
Yes, they were, and again, did it.
One reason for asking that question, I've been going through, or I went through recently, the statements you made in the Gazette prior to election.
Yeah.
And
Did you want to remind us of some of those?
How are we scoring, Roy?
I've got them in writing, not here tonight, but I'll send them on.
In the newspaper?
It's too far from the anniversary. A second question. The website information for the city doesn't seem to be up to date. Is there some reason for that?
I
Lack
thought
of
it,
staff, lack of
Yeah.
somebody to do it?
I thought it was, but I would ask if anyone is aware that it's not.
Do you worship any particular part of it?
Specifically, what's out
Well,
of
in
date?
particular, and seeing Chris Moslin here, there's still information, there's no information that I can find, and maybe I'm not using it properly,
on the Environment Committee. There's information on the Air Quality Committee,
Right.
which no longer exists. It's good to have that archival. But
Councillor Wyers, are you aware of it being out of date in the environment?
Well, it's still under the Boundary Air Quality Committee link, and it hasn't been re-identified as the Grand Forks Environment Committee. But I understood Wayne Copan was looking into, he's looking at a module at the top for environmental.
Okay.
That are garbage and things like that. We go under, and our committee in that too.
Okay, so they're addressing it and they are aware of it.
okay. And final comment, I look forward to the open house that you're going to sponsor with the downtown merchants.
Okay, and it'll be well publicized.
I've been waiting for a long time for.
Well, good. I'm glad the initiatives of council are getting it moved forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further from the floor? Mr. Hanson.
Ray Hanson. Thank you, Your Worship, and council and staff. The members of council who are part of the Deer Committee, I don't know whether this is an appropriate question to ask you or not, but what is their position on the cull idea?
Well, in fact, many of the Deer committees provincially have been accused of stacking the deck with one side or the other, of either supporters of a cull or non-supporters of a cull. I think our Deer committee is relatively balanced between those interests. So it's difficult for me to answer for the group, but I would say that we're certainly not one-sided in the way we're looking at the issues. How's that for a politician's answer?
I guess what I was trying to get at was, does council favor the cull, or the representatives of council favor a cull, or, I mean, the reason I'm asking that is that I was excited to see that the article in the paper said that the Native people and the can't think of the proper name, but anyway, that
Métis?
the Métis, yeah, that they were an organization, they were quite excited or quite interested in the cull idea. And I thought, great, you know, we have a little bit of a chance of a solution there. And if you don't think I need a solution, come to my house tomorrow and I'll take you around my back lawn and so on, and make sure you wear rubber boots because you'll have to wash them after. We need something to happen. We don't need a committee to go on for years and years talking about what to do. We need a committee that makes a decision and moves forward with something. Otherwise, might as well get rid of the committee.
Yes, and that is on the table for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, you wanted to
Well,
comment?
so I was just going to suggest Mr. Hanson come to the committee meeting tomorrow and
It's
and
a
get
tough
more.
committee, but don't burden him with this, please. He's got enough on his plate. Okay, that's it. Motion to adjourn. Still moved. Councillor Wyers.